Hey all, before we get into the tips, I just want to super quickly ask if you'll leave a comment just letting me know what you liked or didn't like about the video compared to my first one. This early feedback is going to be essential in helping me to make better videos to bring to you. Thanks a bunch and let's get right into it. Are you tired of this happening to you? Or this? Don't be this guy. Today, on top of the general gameplay, I'm going to be sharing with you some tips and tricks for the offlane, so you don't end up like this Greystone here.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
There's been a noticeable uptick in obviously new players that have been facing the offlane lately, as well as people posting on Reddit or Discord asking how to fight Grux or Greystone or insert hero name here in the offlane. This video isn't how to directly counter those heroes, but more generalized tips and tactics I use to dominate the offlane, so you can make more plays like this. If you would like to see videos on how to counter specific heroes, please do let me know though, because I would be interested in making those.
Nice.
So the first clip I have here, we're going to use Chadstone as an example of what not to do. And this isn't really a clip of me trying to flex my spectacular gameplay, but more to showcase what Greystone did wrong here and how I got him to play into my little mind games. You can see here that Greystone must be having a hard time accepting that he got kicked out of Camelot, because he's doing the exact opposite of what my first tip here is going to be, and that is to use your abilities strategically. You saw how he basically runs into my lane, spamming all of his abilities on the minions trying to push my wave, but all this does is lead to his death because he has no way of defending himself. Spamming your abilities is a terrible idea in pretty much any role. I mentioned on my last video that lane control is one of the most important tactics in a MOBA, because you have to venture into
The dark side.
which makes them easier to gank because they need to cover more ground to get back to the safety of their tower. We can see Greystone commit this cardinal sin not once, but twice, in the first 3 minutes of the game, giving me a massive head start on him. This will ensure that he never gets his invitation back to the round table. The next tip I have is something I see people do all the time, and it makes my life way too easy, and that is to never start the Cayenne buff first. One thing Greystone did do right here was he shoved the minion wave into my tower, and then he went to go start it. The problem though is that I was at full health and full mana. The only exception to my tip would be is if he had beat me to within an inch of my life, then it probably would have made a little bit more sense to go start the buff, but all I had to do was walk over there and time my abilities to steal it from him. My man seemed like he just had an auto-clicker selecting all of his abilities the second they came off cooldown or something, because I have no idea what bro was doing in the first 10 minutes of this game. Then Severug comes over to try and gank me, but unfortunately we see another example of not using your abilities very well. Sev ults me away from both him and Greystone. Then we get to see an example of what good team play looks like, with my crunch foregoing the 70 coins from his camp and 6 good job pings he would have gotten from me as I start rage typing if he didn't come help. Instead of that though, he actually hauls his robotic Curious George looking ass over to me, and we unleash a can of whoop ass on them and make them think twice about ganking me. This just goes to show how important the timing and proper usage of your hero's kit can be, and those types of macro plays are a big part of what separates lower rank and higher rank players I've seen.
What are you doing here? You looking at me?
Come on, 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 come on.
Oh shit, more hair.
Next small tip isn't really related to the gameplay, but I wanted to put this in just because it's very effective and I don't see many people doing it. And that is to do some jungle invading of your own. Most people I've talked to seem to assume it's exclusively the jungler's job to invade, but you have just as much right to the enemy's jungle as he does. Most offlaners seem to treat the enemy jungle like Area 51, and they just assume they'll mysteriously cease to exist if they go anywhere near it. And while this can be true sometimes, it comes down to knowing the right times to invade. Typically, if they're solo just backed and I notice the enemy jungle anywhere besides my side of the map, go have a little look-see. Is his run up? It's a risk, but it only takes about 10 seconds by the time you should be looking to invade as a solo. Even if not, quickly grabbing the 5 camp is just easy extra farm to help you push or keep ahead. Next thing I want to talk about is the importance of rotations as a solo laner, because it's a delicate balance to know when to push your lane and when to rotate. I see players struggle with this balance constantly, either by pretending that their lane is the only one that exists and just pitching a tent over by Cayenne buff for the first 20 minutes, or rarely by being too overambitious and losing too much farm by trying to be Zarus Wick. It's me. I'm that person. Knowing when to rotate and show presence is important and a vital part of your role as a solo laner. Typically, a good strategy for the first 20 minutes is to try and bait out your opponent's abilities and bully him out of lane so you can easily secure the Cayenne buff. While you're doing that though, try and time your backs with the Fang Teeth spawns, and if you can do it right, it's a sneaky way to potentially catch the enemy off guard. Right before you back, let your team know to group up and attack Fang Tooth and that you're on your way. If you happen to be paired with the squad over at the retirement home in their afternoon leisure time though, and your jungle Quang is busy doing his blue side 3 camp, well, at least you tried. Sometimes not everyone is on the same page, especially in solo queue like a lot of us are, but that's one of the reasons I'm making these videos. I think a lot of us have a competitive aspect if we punish ourselves enough to want to play this lovely game, but I also think that we can all relate and agree it's a lot more fun simply outplaying your opponent and coming out on top in these close fights, and it's not nearly the same level of satisfaction when I can just sit there and turn Greystone into a bottom over and over. So in conclusion, time your backs, bait your opponent's abilities, bully them out of lane to safely secure Cayenne, and time your store backs with Fang Teeth spawn to try and sneak them in with your team. The last thing I want to talk about here is something I see, in my opinion, way too often in my rank, and it may be a controversial opinion, but I want to say my thoughts on it, and that is picking a quote-unquote traditional offlaner for most games. And look, I get it. You've gone Murdoch solo lane and wiped the floor with their grubs. And I'm not telling anyone how to play the game, I'm a fellow meme build connoisseur myself. The reality of most of these types of games though, where you see a successful ADC or mage offlane, usually comes down to the lack of jungler experience. The reason I say that is, while I see the appeal of trying to play a ranged character versus a melee one, I promise, the biggest reason people are able to get away with that right now is because of lack of general player experience. You'll be able to walk all over almost any solo for the first 5 or maybe 10 minutes of the game, but if they even have half a clue how to play against something like that, the minute they start to come online just a little, you can't 1v1 them anymore, and it's their turn to mop the floor with you. Again, sure, there are exceptions to this, and I'm not going to tell you not to play your ADC off lane. I just want to point out some reasons to reconsider, because while it may be fun for a few games, even if you wipe the floor the whole game, if the enemy has a tankier bruiser type hero, they will win almost every late game fight, barring some huge mechanical misplays. Plus, with the very well received recent matchmaking update, I've noticed nearly all my games are much more even skill wise. This further closes the gap of trying to be able to successfully try out meme builds. If I'm in a rather mischievous mood, I'll ask my teammates in the pregame lobby if they have any objections to me using a meme build. Typically though, the answer is yes. When rank comes out and you can actually play casually in the game mode, I'd say go for it. But because we're all playing the same game mode, most of us queuing up want to dunk on some fucking scrubs. Not have some punk act like they're the best player NA just to go 2-9 as Sparrow because they finally played a team that knew how to counter that. But in the end, you don't have to listen to me. I'm just a guy on the internet, and if getting made into Crunch's personal punching bag is fun, well, more power to you. If you keep these tips in the back of your mind going into your next couple solo games, I promise you will see a noticeable improvement in your overall gameplay. Personally, I've been playing so long, I just fill any role typically in my live streams. I'll link its schedule in the description if you want to check out the shameless plug. But whenever I play solo, I've noticed some games are way too easy for me to win, and while I like winning, it's not the same when it's like taking candy from a baby. These are just a few of the tips I've learned over the years of playing, and things I've incorporated into the gameplay you've been seeing in the background. While I still consider myself far from elite, ? I'm hoping these tips will make you reach your next level of gameplay and you'll come back one day to teach me something I didn't know. If you watched this whole video, thank you so much. It really does mean a lot to me and will continue to help motivate me to make content for this game. Please do let me know what you liked or didn't like in the video, as anyone interested will help shape what this channel ends up becoming. I think my next few videos will be along the lines of generalized tips for each specific role and maybe breaking it down into some specific hero or counter/build videos. Thanks again, I'll see you guys on the battlefield.